Hello everyone and welcome to another day in Athens, Greece. Unfortunately, it's not that sunny today. God, that's a nice house. Yeah. Today we're talking about the 5 stuff I hate about the Honda Varadero. Here we go. Okay, so there's some things I love about this bike, some things I hate. Let's start with the hatred, right? Always. Not someone important lives here. Okay. So 5 things I hate. First of all, bike is very heavy. Like, insanely heavy. It's closer to 600 pounds than it is to 550. I'm guessing, no, that's a lie. I'm guessing it's around 560, maybe with the crash bars, 570. It's a heavy bike. I always mean wet weight. Dry weight, I don't really care. It's very heavy, so problem with it being very heavy is the fuel consumption goes up, but that's another point. But mostly it's harder to handle, mostly in the city. Because it's very heavy, it's also not as easy to handle between cars, in traffic. So yeah, it does make it good though while touring. If you come across crosswinds that are very strong, it's very cool to have a very heavy body because it doesn't move at all. That's one. I don't know you, dude. Or you, whatever. Number 2. Second thing I hate about this bike is the front end. Okay, let's not, whatever. The front end is quite vague. Now, it obviously doesn't have the best twisty suspension in the world. It wasn't made to, anyway. But a lot of people complain about the rear suspension. I find the front end quite vague. And it doesn't have any adjustment you can do. It's not really, you're not really sure where you're putting it in the corner. But I'm pretty sure I'm the only one of like 2 or 3 guys in the world trying to go through twisties hard with the Varadero. Number 3, that's easy. Fuel consumption. Because it's so heavy and because it's 1000 cc's, it tends to go through fuel like a baby lion goes through an antelope. Not the most fuel efficient bike in the world, although I can say that because this is the fuel injected model, well, the previous one from this one, the Mark 1, was a carbureted model. That was even worse. So technically it's not really bad. Of course it depends on how you drive it, but you get a bay heavy machine, 1000 cc's, it's gonna go through fuel, right? Okay, and 4th thing I hate about the Varadero, it's the windscreen. This bike was sold as an off bike. Which is ridiculous because in actual fact it's a touring bike meant to carry big people with lots of stuff. But the windscreen is shameful for a touring bike. It's just shameful. This, what I have now, is the high position. Problem with the high position is it tends to actually give more turbulence, especially for the passenger, than prevent wind coming at me, because wind's hitting me square in the face, and maybe that's good for letting some cool air through the helmet, but that's insane when you're touring because it kind of wears you down. So If I didn't have a windscreen, that would be fine. This is shameful. Number 5 and last, but certainly not least, thing I hate about this bike, it keeps raining at odd times. What is that? Anyway, is that it does not have a fuel gauge. It has a fuel light, which comes on about 50 kilometers before you run off completely. But it doesn't have a fuel gauge. And that's ridiculous for a touring bike and for a bike that someone, fortunately not me, paid 13 grand for this bike years ago, right? But someone paid 13 grand for this bike and it doesn't have a fuel gauge. I mean, ridiculous. What, I'm supposed to plan my trips and whatever, waiting for the gas to run out? No fuel gauge, dude. It's a $2 part, whatever. Anyway, I'm not gonna start ranting about it, but it's ridiculous. A 13 grand bike, no fuel gauge? Really? You get a 2 grand core and it has a fuel gauge. Anyway, those are the 5 stuff I hate about the Varadero. I will do a love about this bike, because there are stuff like that as well. And at any rate, I'll see you in the next one. 2 Great Wheels out.